Welcome to our weekly Forex forecast, and today we'll be looking at the week of July 22nd to 26th. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. This is for educational purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money. All right, so let's go into our calendar here. So we are looking at the July 22nd here. We do have Bank of Japan Governor Kuroda speaking today. So Japanese Bank of Japan has actually been sort of dovish. So we saw that over the last couple of weeks, we saw comments come out from Bank of Japan saying that they are going to stay with an expansionary monetary policy, and they may even need to ease the monetary policy further, which is negative for Japanese yen. So if we hear comments similar to that, Japanese yen could be negatively impacted by that. So keep that in mind. On a Tuesday here, we don't have a ton of stuff, just the trade balance numbers for New Zealand. And if the numbers are negative here, it will have a negative impact on New Zealand dollar. But on Wednesday here, we have a ton of PMI numbers from the Eurozone. So PMI numbers are leading indicators for retail sales, GDP, and all of that. So these numbers are very, very important because they show the central banks where the economy is going. So we have to pay special attention to these numbers. So right now, so if we see euro numbers come out negative, that will basically give ECB more reason to actually go into easing the monetary policy. And ECB has been talking about that. So these numbers coming out negative will actually have a big negative impact on, relation to what we've been saying, will have a big negative impact on euro because of the market's expectation that ECB is likely to take action if we continue to see negative numbers. So that's on Wednesday here. We do have RBA Governor Lau speaking as well in the Asian session. And here is our ECB. So ECB, like I mentioned, they have been dovish in their comments. And if we see negative numbers come out, of course, like I said, it will be bad for euro because it gives ECB reason to take action. So far, ECB hasn't taken any kind of monetary policy action. So now we are, so market will be expecting, their reaction on ECB's reaction this week. So because they have been saying negative things, so now market is basically looking at ECB to do something about it. So if the ECB conference here, if their monetary policy is dovish, they're already at zero, so we're not looking to see any kind of rate cut here. But if the monetary policy statement is dovish, that means if they are looking at a weakening economy, if they're concerned about trade wars, if they have any kind of comments about, or negative comments, I would say, about the upcoming year or so, that would be negative, and we can see euro drop on that. So this is a very important monetary policy statement as well as the press conference, especially now because we are seeing other central banks being very dovish and actually cutting rates. So very important to keep in mind here. And on Friday, we have GDP advanced numbers here for the quarter. And that's it. So overall, not a ton of data this week. And another thing to keep in mind is now we are into the summer trading. The summer trading, usually we have low liquidity during summer. So the price movements can be quite exaggerated because smaller orders can move the market, which weren't able to move the market, or which aren't able to move the market during normal liquidity conditions. Especially August tends to be really low liquidity month for Forex trading, just because a lot of traders are away, and we have junior traders running the show, as well as just a lot of liquidity is just not there in the market because those orders are out of the market. All right, so let's go on to our charts now. All right, so we will start by taking a look at our weekly calendar here for the euro. So what we have seen here with euro, let me just remove a couple lines. So this is where we are. For the Eurozone here, we saw that the price had dropped, then it pulled back. And last week, we had talked about how if price doesn't go above this 1300 level, it's likely to drop. So we have seen that drop. And now price is in this narrow range here. So overall, we have this larger range that price has been trading in for several weeks here. And now we have a bearish candle close. So I would look for price to drop. Now, do keep in mind, price had trouble breaking through the support level at 1.1180. If it doesn't break that level, it could go higher. So my bias is to the downside. However, the caution here is if it doesn't drop, chances are it can go higher. So be careful with that one. But otherwise, my bias is to the downside. I am looking for price to break through the support and go to the next level. So the first target is 1.1100 here. Now, should the ECB come super negative or dovish here, we could see it drop into this 1020 level back into this one here, or all the way into 1.0920. I would say the chances of it dropping into 1.10 on a dovish ECB are higher than it going all the way down, because US dollar currently is not that strong either. But dovish ECB will be negative for the euro, and we could see some other crosses like Euro New Zealand and those kind of crosses drop further. But anyway, for this one here, bias is to the downside. First target is 1.1100, second target 1.1020. So bearish bias for euro dollar. Pound dollar here, pound has been interesting. We have been getting some Brexit related stuff lately. And as a result of that, British pound has actually gone higher. It's moved up as a result of the positive Brexit news. So Parliament actually voted down the no Brexit deal. They voted down not a no deal Brexit. That's a better way of saying it. So they voted down no deal Brexit, which is positive for the pound. And as a result, we saw price drop and then it went back up. Now, this one here could go higher. It is into resistance right where it is currently. So do keep an eye on that. So if it stays below 1.2600, then chances are it could drop again. But I would look for perhaps a bit of a drop and then price to go back up here. So as long as it stays above the low here, I'm looking for it to go higher. And it could go into 1.2720. The critical thing would be, is it able to break the 1.2600 level? If it breaks it, then I am definitely looking for it to go higher, back into this level here. However, if it doesn't, then it could just drop further. Or it can just consolidate here, because we do have next week, we have FOMC, which will have an impact on this pair as well. So for now, basically, I'm looking for it to go higher. Target is 1.2700. Aussie dollar here, this one, we were looking for it to go higher last time. It did do that. And here we are. So this is an interesting place for it to be at the moment. It's into a ton of support resistance here. And we have seen the prices and actually been able to stay above that. But it still looks bullish. So bias is bullish here. So the only thing to keep in mind here will be, if price goes to test the high and does not break it, it could come back down. So that will be the caution. So if it goes up into the resistance and doesn't break it, it could drop. Keep that in mind. However, bias is bullish. Once it breaks higher, it could go all the way into 0.7150. So bullish bias here for Aussie dollar. New Zealand dollar, this one has been very strong here. So bias here is still bullish, looking for it to go higher. This one as well is into resistance. So that's important to keep in mind. If price goes back into the high, so my bias is bullish, first of all. If price goes into the high and does not break it, this one can also drop. So be careful with this here, the resistance level. But other than that, a bias is bullish. I will look for a break and a follow through, and it could go all the way into there as well. So bias right now is bullish for New Zealand dollar. First target is 0.6840 and second target is 0.6940. So bullish bias for New Zealand dollar. Dollar CAD here, this one has been interesting as well. We had tons of data last week, so we saw price go up and then it has dropped. So we have a bearish move here, or we have a rejection here. So looking for bias to be to the downside here. 1.2960 is the first target, and then it could drop further into 1.2920. So bearish bias here for dollar CAD. But do keep in mind this one as well is into support. If it doesn't break support, it could go higher. It has traded in this range for the last 3 weeks, so it can go test the high of the range. But all these pins show rejection. So I'm looking for price to drop. So 1.2960 and then 1.2920 will be the next target for dollar CAD. Euro pound here. Euro pound has been trading in this little range for quite some time. It went all the way here, and now we have seen a drop. So we have two pin bars here looking for it to drop further. And target here would be 0.8850. So bearish bias here for Euro pound. Swiss franc, Euro Swiss franc looking bearish, a nice drop. Last time we were looking for a drop, so now we are there. And now bias is to the downside, and the target here will be 1.0920. So bearish bias here for Euro Swiss franc. Now we could get a pullback into 1.05. Sorry, 1.05, yeah, 50 here, and then a drop. So watch out for that. But otherwise, a bias is to the downside. Target is 1.0920 into this area here. So bearish bias here for Euro Swiss franc. Pound Swiss franc, this one is also looking bearish here. We have seen price drop. So the bias is to the downside here. And the next target is 1.2100. So bearish bias for Euro Swiss franc as well, and looking for a pullback into 1.2340. So that's our pullback level here, and the target is 1.2100. So that's bearish. Dollar Swiss franc as well, bearish here. We have a bearish pin bar. Last time this was bearish as well. So target here is 0.9780, and then second target is 0.9700. So bias is bearish here for our dollar Swiss franc here as well. And we could get a pullback potentially into 0.9840 here. So I would keep an eye on this level. But bias is bearish for dollar Swiss franc as well. And yen crosses here. Pound yen here, we did see a drop here. Last time we had an indecision candle, but we have seen a drop here over the week. So bias is bearish for pound yen. And in terms of our targets, looking at 132.50. So bearish bias, I will look for a pullback into this area here, 135.30. and then looking for a drop. So bearish bias here for pound yen. Euro yen here, this one is also bearish. We saw a nice drop. Last time our bias was to the downside, so here we are. But this time as well, our bias is to the downside. But just keep in mind that we are right into this support here. So let me get rid of these. So we are right into support, and this is the range that price has been trading in for last several weeks here. And see how bearish we were here, and then price just didn't do anything. And we have a nice solid bearish candle close right into our support level. But the caution is that it could do this. It could just turn around, and we have no control over that. So keep that in mind. And this is where we have to be cautious instead of just going too much into going too negative. I would just be cautious. Bias is to the downside though. And next target is 119.20. So bias is bearish, looking for price to drop further. And if ECB goes negative or dovish, we could see it go into 118.30 level here. But bias is to the downside. And those are our targets, 119.20 and 118.30. So bearish bias there. Dollar yen here. This one, we have an indecision candle. Last time we were looking for a drop, so we got that pullback and a drop. But the way the candle closed, it's more neutral here. So this one could go in either direction. So I would be careful with this one. For the trend, so overall trend is still to the downside. For the trend to continue, we need to see a break through the bottom here and a continuation to the downside. So at this point, I'm neutral on dollar yen, and I'm looking for it to basically, if it breaks the high, I'm looking for it to go into 109. If it breaks the candle's low at 107.20, I'm looking for it to go into 106.50. But for now, my bias is neutral for dollar yen. Aussie yen here, this one did not do a whole lot. It's just traded in this narrow range. So let me get rid of some. Okay, so here we are. It's just traded in this narrow range. We have a small bullish candle close here, but nothing major. But because we have a bullish candle close, I will look for price to go and test the high here of this previous candle, this previous support resistance area at 76.35. And if it stays below, I'm looking for it to drop. So right now, I'm seeing this as a range bound, a very, very small green candle close, which means it does have some bullishness and it could go higher. But I would be cautious with this one here as well. Not a strong pair to trade at this point. New Zealand yen, this one has actually been quite bullish. Overall, this week, previous week, New Zealand dollar was quite bullish. So we have a bullish candle close here. So I will look for price to go up further. So bias is bullish here. Now with this one as well, we have to keep in mind if price doesn't go through this level, because this is where we were last time. If price does not go through this level, it could just turn around. So be mindful of that. But overall here, bias, as we can see, is to the downside. There is momentum, to the upside. There's momentum to the upside here. So we could get a pullback potentially into 72.50 and then a further move higher. Our bias is bullish. 73.50 will be the target here. And it could go higher as well. If it gets through this support resistance level, it could go into 74.20. So bullish bias for New Zealand yen. Let's take a look at CAD yen here. CAD yen, we were bearish last time. We did see a drop. It has pulled back, but overall bias still remains to the downside. And I am looking for a bit of more of a pullback into 82.60-ish level. And then a drop. First target is 82. Second target is 81.50. So bearish bias for CAD yen as well. All right, so let's look at our commodities. First, gold here. Gold has dropped. The equity markets did quite well. And when that happens, we see risk or safe assets, safe haven assets go down. So we saw our our gold here go down. In this case, we do have, just for that Friday here, things reversed. So overall, we were looking for a move higher last time, and it did that, went through our high, and here we are back again. So we are all the way into this level here. But we have a large pin because of that drop on Friday. So with this one here, it still is overall a little bit range bound. It's holding the highs though. If we see, it is holding the previous highs. So still bullish, but still in this range. So I would look for price to go higher in this case and retest 1440 level perhaps, or even all the way into 1453. And then if it doesn't stay up there, it could reverse from there. So bias at this point, I'm actually really looking for price to be range bound for the moment. I think going into our FOMC, it may stay range bound. Okay, so let's take a look at silver here. Silver, we got a huge move to the upside here. We were looking for it to go high, but I was not looking for such a big move here. So here, bullish bias still. We could see a pullback perhaps into 15.90 level. And then I will look for price to go and retest the high here. 16.60 will be the first target. And then 16.90 will be the second target. So bias here is bullish, and this is the type of move I'm looking for, and potentially into that level. So bullish bias for silver, first target 16.60 and then 16.90. Oil here. Oil overall, we saw a drop. So price was right into that resistance there. We had talked about this last week, and now we have a huge drop in oil. So next, actually, in terms of oil, there's something we need to keep in mind. On Friday, I think it was, we saw that news come out where Iran had captured one of the British oil tankers. So Iran has threatened disruption of the supply chain of oil, because the oil tankers passed through there, and they captured one oil tanker. So if they continue to do that, this kind of stuff can spark tensions. And if we see things escalate from that point of view, I haven't seen any more sort of, tensions rising at this point. But if they do rise, so keep an eye on your newsfeed. If we see more news like that, that would be actually positive for oil. Anytime there's a threat to the supply chain of oil, oil prices go up. So keep that in mind. The bias is negative here or to the downside, but if we hear any sort of these comments or these escalations, it would be good for oil. Sorry, excuse me, my cough. Okay, another thing on that note, if there are escalations between US and Iran, that will be good for safe haven assets. So Japanese yen, we see Japanese yen, Swiss franc, and then gold. All of these are safe haven assets, and they get impacted to the positive when the tensions escalate. So any kind of geopolitical tensions usually have a positive impact on safe haven assets, and negative impacts on the market. So just keep that in mind. But here, bias, just purely based on technicals here, is to the downside. Our potential pullback is 57.20, and then looking for a drop, First target is 54.80 and then 53.50. So bias is bearish here for oil. Oil, copper here. Copper was very bullish as well. And this is why we saw the commodity currencies go up so much. So here we have a bullish candle close, but price wasn't able to hold this level here. But because it is still bullish, the momentum is to the upside, I will look for price to potentially retest this. If it doesn't break, then we're likely to see a drop. So bias here is bullish, but with a caution here. If it doesn't break the high, then chances are it will drop. So right now, the target is 2.76. And that's where I'm going to put it. I'm not looking for it to go higher. I'm just looking for it to retest the high. If it does break, then I would look for the next one here. But otherwise, I'm looking for price to come back into this range here. So, yeah. So bias is bullish, as I say. Okay, Bitcoin here. Bitcoin has been interesting. It has just gone back and forth here. And based on this, I'm still looking for a range-bound move. As long as it stays above this 9,000 level, I would look for price to just trade in the range. This is not the latest chart for Bitcoin, so please do keep that in mind, and you want to look at the latest one. My broker closes on Friday, so I do not have the latest Bitcoin chart. But right now I'm looking for it to go up perhaps, but stay in this range until such time that it breaks out, and then we'll reassess. S&P 500, we saw a drop on Friday here, big drop, and now this is looking bearish. But we haven't quite gone through the support level here. Last 2 weeks it went up and then it dropped, but we haven't seen the break of the support yet. So bias is bearish. However, if the support does not break, then we could see it turn around as well. So I would be careful with that, but bearish bias for now and looking for it to drop further. Target is 2,900 level. So that's our target, 2,900. Bias is bearish for S&P. NASDAQ here, this one also looking bearish. Here the target is 77.20. So bearish bias for this one as well. DAX here is looking bearish as well, looking for it to drop further here. Next target is 12,000. And then, yeah, so actually let's keep it at 12,000. So 12,000 is the target for DAX. FTSE here is trading in a range. So we do see rejection here. There's a large pin here which shows a rejection of the top here. Bias is bearish, but this one has also not broken through the support yet, which means it could still stay in that range. But bearish bias here, first target is 74.40 and then 73.80. So bearish bias for our FTSE. And last but not least, Japanese yen here. We have a bearish bias, looking for it to drop further. We could get actually a bit of a pullback into 21,500 and then a drop. So bearish bias. And here we go, 21,000 is the target for Nikkei here. That's all I have. Any questions before we wrap it up? All right, so if you would like actually to get a copy of this copy of the watch list that I usually send out with this, you can go to this one here, tradingwithvenus.com/forecast, and you will be able to get a copy, download a copy of the spreadsheet that I sent with all the targets for the different pairs that we talked about today. But other than that, that's all I have. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend and a great trading week, and I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.